It should be fun. Like, it just feels like no matter how, well versed, knowledgeable someone is, there's always something about like America that few people know because America's such a big country. Like, there's just always, it feels like, especially for me, because I'm not American, it feels like every day I'm learning about America, even though, I've been doing this channel for a few years now.
2003 Popular Science article listing the worst jobs in science. Metric system advocate came in at number 11.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the things
Dude, the metric system, what's so bad about it? It just makes sense.
you might not have known about the United States, even if you've lived there your whole life.
Voting is what's on everybody's mind this month, but what if that right was essentially taken away?
Number 10. The U.S. purchased Alaska for just $7.2 million.
It was Russians who first settled in Alaska in 1784. And just like the rest of the Americas, their conquest brought massacres and disease to the natives.
Alaska was that cheap? Who made that deal? Whoever was on the other side of that deal, terrible negotiator.
As a colony of Russia, it was known as Russian America from 1799 to 1867,
Russia,
until,
right.
ironically, the Crimean War in Ukraine forced Russia to sell Alaska to the United States for a little more than $7 million to help offset Russians' growing debt.
In 1867, the United States bought Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million.
What's that accounted for inflation, though?
Roughly 2 cents per acre. At the time, critics mocked it as Seward's folly, believing Secretary of State William H. Seward had wasted money on an icebox.
There was a lot of question whether or not Alaska would be able to economically support itself and it wouldn't be a economic burden on the United States.
There was a lot of argument about whether or not this was a good purchase, whether or not it was a wise move at that particular time, only a few years after the end of the Civil War.
But the discovery of gold in 1896 and later oil at Prudhoe Bay in 1968 made the purchase one of the most lucrative real estate deals in history. Today, Alaska provides critical natural resources, military strategic value, and nearly 20% of America's landmass. It's a reminder that the nation's growth wasn't always driven by immediate profit, but by calculated risk and geopolitical vision. Even so, many Americans forget that their largest state was once a controversial gamble.
Russia's own domestic situation was becoming more complicated. Russia had, of course, lost the Crimean War. So that, combined with the remoteness of Alaska, these kinds of things all contributed to an awareness on the part of some of the advisors to the Tsar Alexander II that perhaps it might be a good idea to go ahead and get rid of this faraway colony.
Number 9.
Dude, $7.2 million for Alaska was a deal, a steal, the sale of the century. I mean, like, I would love to know, what is that in today's money? Can someone please, even if it's like 7.2 billion, that's still like a penny compared to what it's actually really worth. That American who bought that was a genius.
The U.S. has more coastline than you probably think.
Millions of Americans live on a coast, but a new report says sea levels could rise as much as a foot within 30 years. That means coastal cities could flood even on sunny days.
Most people picture America as a continental nation with a few coastal states, but the reality is far broader. When you include Alaska, Hawaii, and U.S. territories like Puerto Rico and Guam, the United States boasts nearly 95,000 miles of coastline, more than almost any country on Earth. That expanse touches 3 major oceans and 2 continents, linking the U.S. to Arctic, Atlantic, and Pacific currents and to global shipping routes.
The Jersey coast back in the 50s would have coastal flooding with a high tide maybe once every 1 to 2 years. Now it's several times a year. But also, since 2000, 2 days of flooding in Miami, Charleston, or even New York City, and now it's 10 days. The before and after pictures are astonishing. If you look at around, the Lady Liberty here, Ellis Island.
America's coastline isn't just beaches and boardwalks. It's a strategic economic and ecological lifeline often overlooked in national narratives that focus on the heartland. The coastal realities of flooding, erosion, and climate risk show that the U.S. is as much a maritime nation as it is a continental one.
Scientists now predict that sea levels surrounding the U.S. will rise an additional 10 to 12 inches by 2050. That's a century's worth of sea level rise in less than 30 years, according to NOAA. Rising sea levels will intensify storm surges, high tides, coastal erosion, and wetland loss.
Number 8.
But what can we do, though? What can we actually do to, reduce the increase of the sea levels? Is there anything we can actually do, or are we just doomed, basically?
The Constitution doesn't guarantee the right to vote.
Do you have the constitutional right to vote for president? Yes, I do.
As an American citizen, yes, I do.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Contrary to popular belief, the U.S. Constitution never explicitly guarantees citizens the right to vote. Instead, it bars specific forms of discrimination. Race, 15th Amendment; sex, 19th; failure to pay a poll tax, 24th; and age over 18, 26th. That means states control most voting rules, including registration deadlines, ID laws, and districting.
The right to vote is really determined on a state-by-state level. But what the Constitution does say in the 15th Amendment is that you can't take away the right to vote on the basis of race, color, or previous condition of servitude.
Supreme Court cases like Bush versus Gore and Shelby County versus Holder illustrate how fragile those protections can be. It's a stark contrast to other democracies that enshrine voting as a fundamental right. The U.S. system relies on norms and patchwork protections, not a single constitutional guarantee to sustain its democracy.
Every state in their constitution has its own protections for the right to vote, but those were written in very general ways, and how much they're enforced and how much protection they give for voters depends upon the way that the state courts have interpreted the Constitution.
Number 7.
Gosh, could you imagine like turning up to vote at the next election and you get refused? You basically say, no, you can't vote. It would be outrageous, wouldn't it? Like, they're like, oh, no, we're just not going to let you vote. Could you imagine the outrage? Like, people would just be rightfully angry.
The U.S. government once poisoned alcohol.
The going rate for a bottle of illicit alcoholic beverage had jumped some 200 or 300% over the pre-prohibition costs. A pretty good markup for the enterprising liquor salesman, sometimes known by the rather uncomplimentary label of bootlegger.
During Prohibition, the federal government took an extreme step to stop bootleggers. It ordered industrial alcohol suppliers to add deadly chemicals like methanol and benzene. When criminals stole and redistilled that alcohol for consumption, thousands died. Historians estimate that by 1933, the program had killed at least 10,000 people. It was an extraordinary moment when moral policy crossed into public health disaster.
I mean, what? They killed people to stop them from drinking. I mean, come on.
A dark footnote rarely taught in American history classes.
December 25th, 1926.
What?
A man runs into a New York City emergency room, crying that Santa Claus is chasing him with a baseball bat.
And then he shortly thereafter dies, and you have 65 other deaths in the same day.
The episode demonstrates how the pursuit of virtue can spiral into state-sanctioned harm, revealing the paradox of prohibition. To save Americans from themselves, the government literally made its own citizens' drinks toxic.
Charles Norris, the medical examiner of New York City, determined that all 65 of them were due to additives in industrial alcohol that had been required by the federal government.
Among the additives is methyl alcohol. More than unpleasant, it's a poison.
Number 6.
Could you imagine if the government were like, okay, because we know that soda is not healthy for you, we are now going to put cyanide in every bottle of soda to stop people from drinking it. Could you imagine the response to that? Like, it's just like, how did they even think that was a good idea to do that? Like, surely they had smart people in the government who were like, guys, I don't think we should be poisoning our own people.
The U.S. tax rate was once over 90% for the richest Americans.
I know taxes are high, and I know they're burdensome, but we ought to keep this thing in proper perspective. The world has some great problems before it today. The United States has great responsibilities in helping to meet those problems.
In the 1950s and early 1960s, the top marginal federal income tax rate was as high as 91%. That figure sounds impossible today, yet the era coincided with rapid economic growth and a rising middle class. Crucially, few actually paid that rate. Deductions and loopholes softened the impact, but the structure signaled a post-war consensus that the wealthiest should carry the largest burden for nation building.
If we want to keep the country on a sound financial basis and hold down inflation, we must pay this money as we go. One of the benefits of using the pay-as-you-go approach is that it results in a tighter check on expenditure.
Highways, universities, and scientific research were funded under those rates. It's a stark contrast to the modern tax philosophy linking lower rates to growth. In truth, America's most prosperous decade was also its most progressive tax era.
It is difficult to overstate how much the whole future of the world depends upon the financial condition of the United States government. We must keep it solvent. We've got to keep it sound. We've got to be sure that the government's financial affairs are well managed.
Number 5.
I mean, to be honest, I think right now the US and every country really could, I'm not saying we should tax anybody at 91%, but I definitely think that the ultra rich, and by that I mean the billionaire class, they need to pay more. There's just so many loopholes that they exploit to not pay a comparable rate of tax that you and I pay. You know, and I know some people say, oh, billionaires pay way more in tax than lower income people, but as a percentage of their income, it's just way less than what somebody on a normal wage would pay.
There's still a place where the US and Russia are only 2.4 miles apart.
At the closest point on Alaska's coast, Russia and the U.S. are just miles apart. That geography lesson so famously summed up by former Governor Sarah Palin when she ran for the White House in 2008.
They're our next door neighbors, and you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
The island on the left is Russia. The one on the right is the United States. They're just 2.5 miles apart.
At the narrowest point of the Bering Strait, 2 tiny islands, Little Diomede, Alaska, USA, and Big Diomede, Chukotka, Russia, sit just 2.4 miles or 3.8 kilometers apart. Separated by the international date line, they're nearly a full day apart in time. Standing on Little Diomede, you can literally see tomorrow across the water.
That's
During the
crazy.
Cold War, this sliver of sea was nicknamed the Ice Curtain, symbolizing how close the rival superpowers truly were.
The ideological battleground was in Europe, the line drawn over what would become the Iron Curtain. In the Arctic, the Soviet-American border would remain open until May 29, 1948, when the Soviets ordered the border closed. The U.S. responded soon after, shutting down the American side.
Even today, only a frozen strait divides them. No border fence, just tundra and tide. The islands underscore geography's irony. 2 nations that shaped global politics for a century remain within eyesight of each other, proving that separation is often more political than physical.
Galagergan is a Yupik elder living in Savunga, St. Lawrence Island. A few years before the border was closed, at the age of 24, she went along on what was to be the last visit to Siberia by the natives of St. Lawrence.
I miss them. I'm still missing them. Good times.
Number 4, the U.S. is...
Man, going back to that deal, 7.2 million for Alaska. What were the Russian government thinking? That was a terrible deal for them.
More museums than Starbucks and McDonald's combined.
The American wing at the Met is at the very center of the understanding of this museum, of the understanding of the genesis of this great institution, and also for the understanding of how American art and how American culture came into being. And it allows you to appreciate American art at its best and American history at its most complex.
There are roughly 35,000 museums across the United States, outnumbering Starbucks and McDonald's locations combined. They range from the Smithsonian to tiny local history centers in rural towns. While fast food may dominate public space, the museum network reveals how much Americans value storytelling and preservation.
The Smithsonian Museum of Natural History has over 147 million specimens, the largest collection in the world.
Wow.
Everything from giant dinosaur bones to delicate butterflies to pickled animals like this stonefish.
147 million specimens. How does it fit in there?
Venomous in the world.
Oh, careful.
These institutions record scientific breakthroughs, social struggles, and regional heritage that might otherwise fade from memory. The statistic reframes America not just as a consumer nation, but as one deeply interested in collecting and curating its own past, however messy that past may be.
I was completely drawn and taken in by the story. In the past, we weren't asking all the right questions. We weren't looking for depictions of enslaved people in a more naturalistic way as an actual portrait of a person because we didn't think they existed. I'd never seen one.
Number 3, millions of U.S. citizens can't vote for president.
Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, and its residents are American citizens. In the spring, they voted in the primaries, but the Constitution explains only the Electoral College, which only has delegates from states and D.C., can vote for president.
What? Why can't they vote?
Roughly 4 million Americans living in U.S. territories, including Puerto Rico, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and American Samoa, are citizens who cannot vote for president. They can serve in the military, pay certain federal taxes, and are governed by U.S. law, but have no representation in the Electoral College.
So they can fight for the country, pay taxes for the country, yet they have no say in who runs the country. That's not fair.
Even their congressional delegates cannot vote on final bills. It's a modern contradiction. Millions of citizens without a national voice.
Social Security, Medicare, they pay into that system.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They are American citizens.
Yes.
And yet, because your mother decided to move back, once you're on the island, you are unable to vote. And not only that, they lack a representative vote in the Congress. They don't have a senator. And that's a big problem.
For a country
Yeah, that's just not fair. I don't think that's fair. Do you?
that champions democracy worldwide, these territories remain constitutional gray zones. Their ongoing push for representation raises a hard question. What does citizenship truly mean in a federal system that leaves some Americans on the sidelines?
Puerto Rico is a U.S. Commonwealth because it was won in the Spanish-American War, right? So it's wild that a lot of these laws haven't caught up to date, and there are a bunch of things going on, you know what I mean? Very backward import taxes through the Jones Act in particular, which some people speculate increases the cost of imported goods like 15 to 20%. So there is an added cost to being a Commonwealth.
Number 2.
Why has the law not been changed to allow them the ability to vote in the elections? Like, where is the pushback coming from? Is it coming from one particular side of the political spectrum, or is it, you know, just that there's other things that are dominating, you know, people's minds and thoughts? You know, like, to me, it just seems a no-brainer that they should be allowed to vote in the election. And if you disagree, let me know why. I'd love to know why you wouldn't want them to be able to vote.
The United States has no official language.
President Trump says for the first time in our country's history, English will be the official language. The executive order will allow government agencies and organizations that receive federal funding to choose whether they will offer services in other languages.
Despite common belief and a 2025 executive order passed by President Donald Trump, the United States has no federally declared official language. English is the most widely spoken, but no law requires it. Multiple attempts to pass an English-only act have failed, and the Constitution is silent on the issue. Some states, like Hawaii and New Mexico, even recognize multiple languages officially. This linguistic pluralism reflects the nation's immigrant origins and its contradiction, a country that celebrates diversity while periodically fearing it. So while most federal documents use English by custom, America's laws don't require it, a fitting paradox for a nation built on plurality.
But members of San Jose's Vietnamese American community say allowing federal agencies to only use English will punish immigrants. I spoke with Philip Nguyen as he was traveling.
I think it places an unfair burden or expectation on many of these immigrants, refugees to assimilate into quote unquote what is like the right American culture.
Before we can...
Oh man, I don't know how I feel about that, because I do think that if you move to a country, it's not just in the country's benefits, but it's also in your benefit if you do assimilate a little bit, at least, because I don't know, but at the same time, you should be able to, you know, keep your own heritage. But does learning English really dilute your heritage or culture? I don't know if it does. I don't know.
Continue. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings
see the little
and switch
flag
on notifications. Number 1. The U.S. is one of only 3 countries that don't use the metric system.
Man, this one is such a big one for me. The metric just makes the most sense. You know, you start with a centimeter, 100 centimeters makes 1 meter, 1,000 meters makes a kilometer. It's just more structured. Like, how many inches are in a yard? I don't know. Do you? I've got no idea. Or how many inches are in a foot?
In America to learn the metric way. It's a simple system based on tens that you can start today. Efficient, more accurate, more universal too. It's good for our economy, our country, and for you.
Only 3 countries on Earth, the United States, Liberia, and Myanmar, still haven't fully adopted the metric system. The U.S. first legalized metric in 1866, then reinforced it with the Metric Conversion Act of 1975 and the Omnibus Trade and Competitiveness Act of 1988, which declared metric the nation's preferred system of weights and measures.
Americans, content with the old way of measuring, were opposed to a conversion.
Because, like, how do you weigh stuff in your head? Like, how many ounces? Like, what's the smaller, like, how many grams are in an ounce? I think it's what? 28 or something, or 32. But then how many grams are in a quart? How many quarts are in a pound? It's just, don't know what. It's just not as clean as the metric. Like, do you agree? Like, let me know why, if anyone who's really, really loves the imperial system over the metric, why?
Diametrically opposed, you might say.
Too damn confusing for somebody who's been brought up on the English system.
The U.S. Metric Board was abolished in 1982, and metric use was largely confined to the world of science, erratically so.
Yet despite scientific and military reliance on it, everyday America clings to miles, pounds, and Fahrenheit. Industry has largely gone metric, culture has not. Americans measure the world in their own terms, a small but enduring symbol of independence and resistance to conformity.
Fair
in a
enough.
global sense, the yardstick isn't just a tool, it's a statement.
Weights and measures, sir?
Yes. Yes, I dream of that one day. Our proud nation will measure weights in pounds, and that 2,000 pounds shall be called a ton.
And what will 1,000 pounds be called, sir?
Nothing.
Which all-American fact shot?
Fun video. For me, the biggest one still has to be the Alaska purchase. I still am not over it. I need to know what $7.2 million in 1836 or wherever it was, what is that in today's money? I know it's going to be in the billions, but if you had to put a price on Alaska, like we're talking probably hundreds of billions of dollars or something like that. What a deal. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.